Nia had always been the heart of the village, a beacon of kindness and wisdom inherited from her late father, Chief Jabari. From an early age, she was beloved by the people, not just for her beauty but for her unwavering compassion. She tended to the sick, comforted the grieving, and spoke words of hope to those who had lost their way. The villagers admired her, but admiration was a dangerous thing when it invited envy. Mama Zuri had entered Nia's life after the passing of her mother, taking the position of the new chief's wife with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was a woman of calculated charm, her honeyed words hiding the sharpness of a blade. Tala, her daughter, was much the same. Though Nia had tried to embrace her as a sister, she was met with cold indifference, a smirk here, a mocking glance there. Their resentment festered in the shadows, feeding on whispers and jealousy. The turning point came when sickness struck the village. It began with fevered whispers before becoming an undeniable reality. Children fell ill, elders shivered despite the blazing sun, and strong men withered like dying crops. Fear gripped the village, tightening its hold with every life lost. In their desperation, the people sought answers, and Mama Zuri was ready with one. "It is her," she murmured to the elders one night, her voice laced with quiet sorrow. "I have tried to love her as my own, but the spirits have spoken to me in my dreams. She brings this curse upon us." A single doubt, when planted in the minds of the fearful, could spread faster than fire. Soon, others added their voices to hers. Hadn't Nia been seen near the river before the water turned foul? Hadn't she spoken to the sick just days before they took ill? The villagers, blinded by dread, forgot the years of kindness Nia had shown them. They only saw a girl who stood apart, whose goodness now seemed unnatural, even threatening. When the elders gathered, Nia was not given the chance to defend herself. The council sat in a solemn circle, their decision already made before she even arrived. She stood in the center, her heart pounding as accusations rained down upon her. "You have brought ruin to us. You speak to the wind and walk with shadows. The spirits demand justice." No matter how loudly she pleaded, no matter how desperately she searched their faces for a shred of mercy, they refused to meet her gaze. The final words sealed her fate. She must be sacrificed. The judgment echoed through the village like the tolling of a death bell. And in that moment, Nia understood, she had been condemned not because of truth, but because of fear. And because of them. Mama Zuri. Tala. Their gazes met across the gathering, and for the first time, they did not bother to hide their satisfaction. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that swallowed sound and made even the wind hesitate. Nia's feet dragged against the cold earth as two village warriors pulled her forward, their grips ironclad. Her wrists were bound with rough rope, the fibers digging into her skin, but the pain was nothing compared to the weight in her chest. Fear, betrayal, and disbelief twisted together, suffocating her more than the bindings ever could. Torches flickered along the narrow path leading into the cursed forest. No one ever ventured here willingly. Stories spoke of lost souls and vengeful spirits that lurked in the shadows. It was a place of exile, a place where the forgotten remained forever. And now, it was to be her tomb. Mama Zuri walked behind the procession, her hands folded in mock grief, her lips trembling as if she were heartbroken. But her eyes gleamed with satisfaction beneath the flickering torchlight. Beside her, Tala made no effort to pretend. A smirk played on her lips, and she whispered something under her breath that made the nearby villagers avert their gazes. A single shovel lay in the middle of the clearing. A pit had already been dug, shallow, but deep enough to serve its grim purpose. The realization hit Nia like a blow. They had planned this long before the village ever turned against her. "No," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. She tried to stop, but the warriors yanked her forward, forcing her to her knees at the grave's edge. "This must be done," one of the elders announced, though his voice wavered. Perhaps there was still a part of him that doubted, that feared what they were about to do. But none of them spoke against it. Her heart pounded wildly as they lifted her, lowering her into the grave. The damp earth was cold beneath her, and when she looked up, all she saw were faces, some turned away in guilt, others watching with grim finality. Tala was the last face she saw before the first handful of dirt struck her chest. It started slowly. A sprinkle of soil, the patter of falling dust. Then came more, faster, heavier, until it covered her arms, her legs. "No! Stop!" Nia screamed, thrashing against the coffin's wooden bottom. "Please! I'm not cursed. You know me." No one listened. The dirt piled higher, seeping into her hair, filling the spaces around her. Her body trembled as her lungs heaved for air, as her fingers clawed at the wooden walls enclosing her. Above, the murmurs of the villagers faded, their voices drowned by the sound of shovels hitting the earth. More dirt. More weight. The sky disappeared from view. Her breath quickened. She pounded against the coffin, her fingernails scraping the wood. "Let me out. Please. Someone." But the dirt muffled her cries. The darkness thickened, pressing in from all sides. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out even her own sobs. Then came the whispers. At first, she thought they were her own thoughts, fragments of desperation slipping into madness. But no, these voices weren't hers. Soft. Echoing. Ancient. They slithered through the darkness, curling around her like unseen tendrils. "You are not alone." The voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was everywhere and nowhere, brushing against her mind like a ghostly caress. "They have buried you, but they have not buried your fate." Nia froze, her breath shallow. The voices were coming from the soil itself, from the roots twisting around her coffin, from the very air that still clung to the last remnants of life. "Do you wish to live?" A shudder ran through her body. Was this a trick? Was her mind unraveling? But as the weight of the earth pressed harder against her chest, as her breath grew thin, she realized she had only one choice. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I want to live." The silence that followed was deep. Expectant. Then, the ground trembled. The darkness threatened to swallow her whole, but Nia refused to surrender. Her lungs burned, her nails tore against the splintered wood, and her arms ached from the weight of the earth pressing down on her. Panic clawed at her throat, but a deeper force, rage, survival, vengeance, drove her forward. She was not going to die here. Gritting her teeth, she forced her fingers into the cracks of the coffin's wooden planks. The wood was damp, softened by the earth's embrace, and she dug her nails in, pulling with every ounce of strength she had left. The whispers had vanished, leaving her alone in the suffocating dark. "You will not be forgotten." The voice had said it. The spirits of the cursed forest had spoken to her. And she would not let their words be in vain. A crack splintered through the silence as one of the boards loosened. Hope surged in her chest, pushing back the panic. She clawed at the opening, her fingers raw, blood mixing with the damp earth as she widened the gap. Dirt trickled into the coffin, clinging to her sweat-soaked skin. She coughed, choking on dust, but she did not stop. She pushed, pulled, fought, her body screamed for relief, but her soul demanded vengeance. Above her, the ground shifted. The air was thick with the scent of rain. The sky had wept while the village buried her, and now the heavens themselves seemed to take pity. The soil above had softened, its weight slightly eased by the downpour. Nia felt the shift, the slight give in the earth above. She dug harder, her nails scraping against roots and rocks, her muscles trembling. A gust of cold air kissed her fingertips through a small opening. She was close. With renewed fury, she shoved her shoulder against the wooden panel. The coffin groaned, the damp wood bending, splintering further. She braced herself and kicked upward with all the force she could muster. Crack. The coffin burst open. A cascade of mud and roots collapsed over her, but she did not care. Her fingers clawed through the last layer of earth, grasping for life, for breath, for vengeance. And then, air. She broke through, her hand emerging first, fingers stretching toward the moon. The cool night air filled her lungs as she gasped, coughing out dirt and pain. Nia dragged herself out of the grave, trembling, her body slick with mud and blood. The full moon bathed her in silver light, illuminating the spectacle of her rebirth. She knelt on the wet ground, chest heaving, fingers digging into the soil as if to remind herself that she was alive. But she was not the same. Gone was the trusting girl who had once walked the village paths with a gentle smile. Gone was the daughter who had sought love from a family that had never truly been hers. The girl who had been buried was dead. The woman who had risen in her place had only one purpose: vengeance. Nia's breath was ragged as she stumbled through the dense, shadowed forest. The moon hung low, its pale light barely piercing the thick canopy above. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of wet earth and ancient wood. Her bare feet sunk into the mossy ground, but she barely felt the cold. The rage burning in her chest kept her moving, kept her upright, even when her body threatened to collapse. She was not alone. Something watched her from the trees. She could feel it, a presence lurking beyond the veil of moonlight, moving without sound. At first, she thought it might be another spirit. The voices that had whispered to her from beneath the earth had faded, but their touch still lingered in the air. Then, a rustling sound. Deliberate. Human. Nia stopped, heart pounding. From the shadows, a figure emerged, an old woman, wrapped in tattered layers of cloth, her silvered hair cascading in wild strands over her shoulders. Her dark eyes gleamed with something unreadable, a knowing expression curling on her cracked lips. "You should not be here, child," the woman said, voice like rustling leaves. Nia swallowed, her throat dry. "I had no choice." The woman stepped closer, tilting her head, studying her. "No," she murmured. "Perhaps not." A long silence stretched between them. The old woman's gaze swept over Nia's mud-streaked skin, the torn remnants of her burial dress, the wild glow in her eyes. Finally, she nodded. "Come." Nia hesitated. "You are not ready to return," the woman added, turning away. "And if you wish to survive, you will listen." Something deep inside Nia told her to follow. The woman led her through the tangled woods, moving effortlessly through the darkness. Nia struggled to keep up, her legs trembling from exhaustion. Soon, they reached a clearing where a small hut sat nestled among ancient trees. Smoke curled from a hole in the roof, carrying the scent of burning herbs and something unfamiliar. Inside, the hut was cluttered with jars filled with powders, roots, and dried leaves. Bundles of strange plants hung from the ceiling, their sharp, bitter scents filling the air. A wooden table was covered in scattered bones, stones, and animal skins. "Who are you?" Nia finally asked. The woman turned, her sharp gaze locking onto her. "Mama Jaha," she said. "And you are not meant to be dead yet." Nia's fists clenched. "They tried to bury me." Mama Jaha let out a low hum, stirring something in a clay pot over the fire. "Then perhaps you should thank the spirits that they did a poor job." Nia said nothing. Over the next days, perhaps weeks, she could no longer tell. Mama Jaha taught her. She learned the ways of the forest, which berries could kill and which could heal, how to move silently through the trees, how to set traps for those who would hunt her. Mama Jaha spoke of spirits, of curses, of the balance between the living and the dead. "You have been marked," the old woman said one night, watching as Nia traced the strange tingling sensation in her palms. "The spirits do not choose lightly." At first, Nia dismissed it as nonsense. But then she began to notice it. The way the air shifted when someone lied. The flickering of shadows around people, revealing the things they feared most. The way her senses had sharpened, the rustling of leaves miles away, the scent of distant rain, the heartbeat of a bird before it took flight. She was not the same girl who had been buried alive. And she was not done with the ones who had tried to kill her. The first time Nia let herself be seen, it was only for a moment. A lone fisherman, weary from a long day, stumbled home through the village outskirts. The moon was dim behind thick clouds, and the path was nearly swallowed by darkness. But as he passed the tall grass near the tree line, he saw someone standing there. A woman. Barefoot. dressed in torn, dirt-streaked cloth. Her skin was pale under the moonlight, her hair wild, her eyes glowing with something unnatural. His breath caught in his throat. His heart slammed against his ribs. The woman tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. Then, before he could cry out, she was gone, vanishing into the trees like a wisp of smoke. By the time he reached the village center, his legs could barely carry him. His words tumbled out in terrified gasps. "Nia," he panted, eyes wide with fear. "I saw her. She's back." The villagers laughed at first. "Nonsense," one of the elders scoffed. "You saw a trick of the light." "Or perhaps your own guilt," another muttered. But then, the strange occurrences began. The livestock were the first. One by one, the strongest animals fell sick, their bodies weakening overnight. Cattle refused to eat, chickens stopped laying eggs, goats lay motionless in their pens, eyes glassy and lifeless by morning. No wounds. No signs of struggle. Only death. "Poison," a healer whispered. But from where? Then came the shadows. Figures glimpsed in the night, darting between trees. Footsteps heard outside homes, yet when the men rushed out with torches, there was nothing there. And then, the dreams. Tala awoke with a scream that shook the walls. Her mother, Mama Zuri, burst into the room, breathless. "What is it?" Tala's chest heaved, her hands clutching at her sheets. "She was here," she choked out, tears streaming down her face. "She was in my room. She whispered my name." Mama Zuri's spine stiffened. "Just a dream," she said, forcing her voice to remain calm. But she could not deny what was happening. Not when she herself started hearing it. The whispers. Soft. Murmuring. Just beyond the edge of her senses. She would turn, nothing. She would listen, silence. But they were there. She knew it. One night, as she lay in bed, she heard it clearer than ever. A voice, right by her ear. "You buried me." Mama Zuri's body seized up, frozen in terror. For the first time in her life, she was afraid. By the time the third villager claimed to have seen Nia lurking in the shadows, the whispers had spread through the village like wildfire. No one walked alone after dark. Women clutched protective charms, mothers pressed their children closer, and even the strongest hunters glanced over their shoulders when passing the tree line. Some said she was a ghost, back for revenge. Others whispered that the spirits of the cursed forest had given her new life, making her something worse than human. The elders met in secret, their voices sharp with panic. "This is madness." Elder Jabari slammed his fist on the table. "The girl is dead. Buried with our own hands." "Then why does fear grip the village?" another elder muttered. "Why do our people see her in the night? Why do the animals die without cause?" Mama Zuri sat at the edge of the circle, her fingers tightening around the wooden armrest of her chair. "You are all letting fear cloud your judgment," she said smoothly. "Ghosts do not return. This is the work of someone who wishes to divide us." But even as she spoke, her heart pounded. She had heard the whispers. She had seen the fear in Tala's eyes. She had felt it herself. Still, she refused to believe it. Until the morning Tala awoke screaming. The household erupted into chaos as servants rushed to her chamber. Tala sat curled on the floor, clutching a small wooden jar in her trembling hands. Her face, once the pride of the village, the face that had turned heads and won hearts, was ruined. Horrid, swollen boils covered her skin, red and angry. Her lips cracked, her cheeks burned with infection. "My face," she sobbed, her voice raw with despair. "What happened to my face?" Mama Zuri snatched the jar from her hands. It was the cream Tala had used every morning, a special blend of oils and herbs to keep her skin flawless. But now, it reeked of something bitter, something foul. "Poison," Mama Zuri whispered. Tala's cries filled the house, her shrieks echoing into the village. By midday, everyone knew. By nightfall, the whispers had turned to certainty. Nia had returned. And she had begun her revenge. Mama Zuri had always prided herself on being in control. She had woven lies into truth, turned the elders against Nia, and secured her daughter's place at the center of the village's admiration. But now, the world around her was unraveling. Tala refused to leave her chamber, covering every mirror, sobbing through the night. The villagers avoided Mama Zuri's home as if it carried a curse. And the whispers, they were louder than ever. Nia's spirit haunts us. The spirits are angry. Who will be next? Fear made people unpredictable, and Mama Zuri knew she had to act before she became their next target. Under the cover of darkness, she visited Babu Kifo, the village's secret keeper. Some called him a healer, others a sorcerer, but everyone feared the old man's power. "You come reeking of desperation," Babu Kifo rasped, his milky eyes barely visible beneath his wrinkled lids. "The same way others came before you, when their sins caught up with them." Mama Zuri straightened, trying to compose herself. "I need protection." "Protection?" The old man chuckled, a dry, brittle sound. "From the dead?" Mama Zuri's fingers twitched. "From whatever is cursing my family. I will pay any price." Babu Kifo studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he grinned. "The dead do not seek gold, Mama Zuri. They seek justice." His words sent a shiver down her spine, but she left his hut with a small pouch of red dust, protection he had promised, if she scattered it at her doorstep. She did not know that while she was meeting with the sorcerer, Nia was making her next move. Before sunrise, a letter appeared at the village square. The paper was rough, the ink smudged, as if written in haste. But the words were clear. "You killed the chief. You took what was not yours. The spirits know. The ancestors know. Soon, the village will know too." The elders found the letter first. It was unsigned, but that did not matter. Suspicion had already taken root in their hearts, and now, it bloomed into something dangerous. By midday, the village gathered. The whispers were no longer cautious, they were bold, loud, angry. She accused Nia, but perhaps she was the true murderer all along. "She has been cursed. Look at her daughter. The ancestors demand justice." Mama Zuri stepped out of her home, ready to silence them with her usual sharp words. But she was met with accusing eyes and restless bodies pressing in. Elder Jabari raised his staff. "Mama Zuri, you have been accused of killing our chief, your own husband. You will face trial at sunset." The world spun. How had this happened? She had orchestrated Nia's downfall with precision. And now, she was in the same place Nia had once stood, accused, powerless, surrounded by those eager to see her fall. As the sun dipped behind the trees, the same elders who had sentenced Nia now sat before Mama Zuri. Only this time, the village was against her. And in the distance, hidden in the shadows, Nia watched. The elders' voices carried through the night air, their judgment ringing across the village like the final beat of a war drum. "Mama Zuri, for your crimes against the chief, against Nia, and against this village, you are sentenced to exile in the cursed forest. The same place where you sent an innocent girl to die." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The villagers, once so quick to believe her, now looked at Mama Zuri with disdain. Fear had turned to hatred, and in their eyes, she was already dead. Tala clutched her mother's arm. "No! You can't do this." But no one listened. Mama Zuri's once proud face twisted in horror. "You fools! I gave this village everything. It was her. It was Nia." She turned wildly, searching the crowd for a ghost. "She's the curse. She's—" The guards seized her arms, dragging her forward. She kicked and screamed, but no one came to her aid. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. The crowd parted as they forced her toward the forest. The same cursed tree she had led Nia to now loomed over her. She thrashed as the darkness swallowed her whole, her wails echoing long after she disappeared from sight. Tala remained frozen in place, watching her mother vanish. She turned to the elders, pleading, "Please, you can't let her die out there." But they had already moved on. Their attention now shifted to her. "You are no longer welcome in the chief's home," one elder declared. "Your mother's crimes have disgraced you." Tala's blood turned to ice. "No, please. I had nothing to do with this." The villagers averted their eyes, unwilling to meet her desperate gaze. The same people who once adored her now refused to even acknowledge her. She turned to her so-called friends, the admirers who had once flattered her, but they stepped away, unwilling to be associated with her downfall. Her beauty was gone. Her mother was gone. Her power was gone. And just like that, Tala fell. She collapsed onto the dirt, sobbing, but no one reached out to comfort her. And somewhere in the shadows, Nia watched it all. She could feel the spirits whispering, urging her to take her rightful place, to rule through fear, to make the villagers suffer for what they had done. She could have made them bow. She could have made them regret ever doubting her. But instead, she turned away. At sunrise, the villagers awoke to find no trace of her. No lingering shadow in the trees, no whispers in the wind. She was gone. But her absence was louder than her presence had ever been. The villagers lived with the weight of their guilt, their regret an unshakable burden. And deep in the forest, where the spirits whispered and the trees remembered, Nia walked forward, free. The village never spoke of that night openly, but the whispers never faded. Fathers warned their sons. Mothers hushed their daughters before bedtime. The old ones, those who had witnessed the burial, would sit by the fire, their voices lowered, their eyes distant. She was dead. We buried her with our own hands. Yet she returned. The younger ones, those too small to remember, would listen with wide eyes. How? How did she escape? But there was no answer. Only silence. The story became a warning, a legend passed down through generations. Betray the innocent, and she will return. Some claim they still saw her, just at the edge of the trees, a shadow moving through the mist. Others swore they heard her voice carried on the wind, a soft whisper that sent shivers down their spine. Only one thing was certain, no one ever ventured into the cursed forest again. And deep within its heart, where the spirits whispered and the trees swayed as if they knew her name, Nia stood beneath the moonlight, watching. Her revenge was complete. But her story was far from over.